Good evening and welcome. Tonight we embark on an immersive journey into the deep symbolic waters of Eastern European folklore. We are here to deconstruct, analyze, and appreciate the true mermaid of the Slavic psyche, the Rusalka. This is not a lecture about the singing, benevolent Ariel of Western commerce, but an exploration of a far more complex, chilling, and profoundly resonant being. We will meticulously trace her metamorphosis from a pagan nature spirit to a feared Christian demon, ground her tragic origins in the harsh social realities of the past, observe her central role in communal rituals, and follow her surprising echoes into regional folklore, protective magic, global mythology, and, ultimately, modern consciousness. Prepare to have your preconceptions of mermaids thoroughly reshaped. Part 1. Rusalki in Slavic mythology, deconstructing the freshwater phantom. Our first task is to shatter the oceanic illusion. The Rusalka is fundamentally not a marine creature. She is a spirit of freshwater ecosystems. Her domain is the inland sea of the primeval forest, the treacherous river bend, the fathomless lake, the mist-shrouded mill pond, the sucking swamp. She is a quintessential liminal entity, inhabiting the border between water and land, just as she exists on the threshold between life and death, fertility and destruction. In her most ancient, pre-Christian stratum, the Rusalka likely evolved from earlier concepts of vodyanitsa, water maidens, or beregini, protective, often ambivalent female spirits associated with coastlines and fertility. She was a personification of the life-giving yet perilous force of fresh water. These proto-nymphs were not inherently evil. They embodied the dualistic nature of the natural world. They could ensure a bountiful harvest, beckon nurturing rains, or promote the growth of crops. However, to cross them, to intrude upon their domain disrespectfully, or to violate associated taboos was to invite disaster. The same water that nourishes can also drown. Her physical depiction is a stark contrast to her Western counterpart. Slavic lore consistently describes her as possessing a cold, supernatural beauty, luminous, pale skin, and immensely long, flowing hair the color of river weeds, damp moss, or tarnished moonlight. This beauty is unsettling, devoid of warmth. Her eyes often hold a vacant, hypnotic, or faintly phosphorescent greenish glimmer. Crucially, she is almost never depicted with a fishtail. Instead, she appears as a young woman, frequently naked or clad in a simple, perpetually damp, white shift. She is famously seen on riverbanks, combing her long locks with a comb made of fishbone or driftwood. This terrestrial capability is key. Her danger is amphibious. She can walk on land, dance in meadows, and even climb trees, especially the birch and willow, trees sacred to her. Her most iconic and potent activity is the Rusalka igra, the Rusalka dance. On moonlit nights, particularly during the liminal period of Rusalnaya week, she and her sister spirits would gather in forest glades or at water's edge, form circles, and dance with an otherworldly, frenzied intensity. This dance was not for amusement. It was a conduit of chaotic, untamed, natural energy, a direct expression of wild fertility. A human stumbling upon this spectral ballet risked being compelled to join and dance to the point of exhaustion, madness, or death. Alternatively, they might find that mere minutes in the enchanted circle translated to days or weeks in the real world. Paradoxically, the grass where they danced would afterwards grow lusher and greener, a testament to their lingering, potent, and ambivalent life force. Thus, in her primordial form, the Rusalka was a localized genius loci, a nature deity, powerful, ambivalent, a personification of the vital and dangerous essence of fresh water. She was a fact of the ecosystem, a force to be acknowledged, negotiated with, and ritually appeased. Part 2. From Pagan Nymph to Christian Demon, the theological and cultural metamorphosis. The arrival of Christianity initiated a profound and systematic campaign to demonize the old pantheon. The rich, nuanced tapestry of Slavic animism could not be erased, so it was strategically recast through a new theological lens. What was once a nature spirit now became a minion of Satan, an unclean force, a demon. This was not a minor shift, but a fundamental recoding of the world's spiritual architecture. The fertile, ambivalent nymph was rescripted as a seductive, murderous phantom. Her intrinsic connection to water, a primordial symbol of both life and chaos, creation and the flood, was neatly repurposed as a symbol of sin, temptation, and spiritual death. The Church propagated and amplified the idea that Rusalki were souls denied peace, particularly those who died unnatural deaths without the benefit of last rites. Their ethereal beauty was reframed as a diabolical lure, a trap for the pious soul designed to lead good Christian men through the sins of lust and spiritual negligence to a watery grave. This demonization is vividly illustrated in the transformation of her symbolic attributes. The simple comb, an object of feminine toilette, became a tool of dark enchantment. To find or pick up a Rusalka's comb was to bind oneself to her fatal curse. The trees she favored became haunted, their branches the sites of her mournful vigils. Her song, which may have originated in the natural sounds of reeds and water, became an irresistible, mimetic melody that could replicate the voices of loved ones to draw victims to their doom. Even her laughter was said to be deceptive, hiding malice. This evolution served a clear socio-religious purpose. It severed the people's spiritual connection to the animate natural world and redirected their reverence, fear, and ritual energy solely toward the Church and its saints. The old offerings left for the nymphs of the spring were replaced with prayers for protection from demons. The Rusalka's journey from nymph to demon is a masterclass in the mechanics of religious syncretism and cultural hegemony, where a dominant faith absorbs and inverts indigenous belief systems to consolidate its authority. She was stripped of her divinity and her nuance, flattened into a cautionary monster. Yet, within the resilient folk imagination, the core of her older, more complicated identity stubbornly persisted. Part 3. Spirits of the Untimely Dead, a social, psychological, and gendered interpretation. This is where the Rusalka myth acquires its profound, humanistic depth. The most pervasive and poignant folk belief is that Rusalki are not primordial spirits, but the souls of women who died untimely, violent, or socially transgressive deaths intrinsically linked to water. Who were these women? The primary archetype is the drowned maiden, specifically a young woman who died by suicide in water following a profound personal catastrophe, most commonly an unmarried girl, a jilted lover, or, most tragically, a woman who took her own life while pregnant out of wedlock. She might have thrown herself into the river after being seduced and abandoned by a lover after brutal social shaming or to escape an arranged marriage. Another potent source was a child who died unbaptized, its soul caught in limbo, unable to enter heaven and condemned to wander the earthly margins. This origin story transforms the Rusalka from an abstract demon into a powerful social and psychological construct. She is a manifestation of collectively suppressed female trauma, rage, and societal injustice. In the rigid patriarchal structures of traditional Slavic communities, a woman's honor, economic security, and very identity were irrevocably tied to marriage and legitimate motherhood. To be seduced and abandoned was a social death sentence, often leading to literal death. The Rusalka is the vengeful return of that silenced victim, her personal tragedy now amplified into a supernatural threat. Her psychology is one of perpetual, unresolved grief and righteous anger. She is psychically frozen in the traumatic moment of her death, forever young, forever in pain. Her infamous activity of tickling men to death is not merely random violence. It is widely interpreted as a distorted, furious parody of the caresses and intimacy she was denied in life, or a targeted punishment meted out to men who mirror her original betrayer. She specifically targets men, particularly the young and handsome, enacting a cycle of gendered vengeance for her own ruined life and stolen future. From a psychological perspective, The Rusalka legend functions as a cultural coping mechanism and a repository for anxiety. She externalizes deep-seated fears surrounding unregulated female sexuality, the terror of drowning, the haunting presence of the unburied or wrongly buried dead, and the guilt of community rejection. She gives a name, a face, and a narrative to the uncanny feeling near a deep pond, the unexplained disappearance of a swimmer, or the unresolved grief for a lost daughter deemed sinful. She is the community's own guilt and repressed anxieties made flesh and haunting the local waterways. Part 4. Rituals, Calendars, and Community. The Rusalnaya week and its functions. Despite the fear, or precisely because of the potent danger it represented, the Rusalka was intricately woven into the very fabric of the Slavic ritual calendar. She was not merely a winter tale, but a springtime force requiring active, communal management. This climaxed during Rusalnaya week, or Green Christmas, Whitsun week, the week preceding Pentecost. This period, coinciding with the peak of spring's explosive, chaotic fertility, was believed to be when Rusalki were at their most active and dangerous, leaving their watery abodes to roam fields, forests, and even villages. It was a time of heightened peril, but also of potent, harnessable magic. The rituals formed a complex spectrum of strategies, from bribery and appeasement to mimetic magic and outright expulsion. Communities engaged in elaborate, performative ceremonies, appeasement, and bribery. Direct offerings were left at liminal spaces, on riverbanks, at field edges, or hung on trees. These included scraps of linen, embroidered cloth, bread, salt, and specially woven garlands, or venki. This was a clear pagan holdover, a gift or payment to the spirit for her goodwill and to encourage her fertilizing influence on the nascent crops. Mimetic magic and expulsion. The most dramatic ritual was the seeing off of the Rusalka. A chosen girl, or sometimes a young man in drag, would embody the spirit, disheveled hair, white shift, often garlanded with greens. This Rusalka would lead a procession of singing women through the village to the fields or riverbank. The ceremony culminated in the symbolic death of the spirit, either the ritual drowning of her effigy, throwing the garlands or a straw doll into the water, or a mock burial in the flourishing rye. This act symbolically escorted the Rusalka's power back to its proper realm, cleansing the human space of her dangerous presence and securing the transition to the safer summer work season. Strict behavioral taboos. A web of prohibitions enforced a state of ritual caution. Swimming was absolutely forbidden. Activities like weaving, sewing, and fence mending, which symbolically bound or enclosed, were avoided, as they might antagonize or trap the free-wandering spirits. The community collectively enacted a conscious, ritualized pause, acknowledging the power of the wild. These rituals served critical psychosocial functions. They marked and managed the critical transition from the chaotic, spirit-filled growth of early spring to the stable, harvest-oriented order of summer. By ritually interacting with the Rusalka, the community performed its mastery over the uncontrollable forces of nature, fate, and its own historical traumas. They acknowledged the power of the wronged dead and, through collective ceremony, sought to restore cosmic and social order. Part 5. Regional masks. The many faces of the Rusalka across the Slavic world. The Rusalka was not a monolithic figure. Her image morphed with the landscape, reflecting local ecology and history. Northern and Eastern realm. Russia, Belarus. Here, the image is often starkly undead. The Rusalka is a corpse. She may be described as bloated, with a blue-green pallor, long, claw-like nails, and hair matted with silt. In some tales, she possesses huge breasts that she must throw over her shoulder to run. Her demeanor is less seductive and more directly predatory, focused on drowning victims to populate her watery realm. Names like Shutovka, Jesteress, or Kupalka, bather, are used. This reflects the influence of deep, dark forests and long winters. She is a creature of cold and stagnant waters. Southern realm. Ukraine, Balkans. The image here is often lighter, closer to the nymph archetype, sometimes merging with the Vila or Navka. These spirits are more strongly associated with the air, trees, and open fields. They might have wings, live in tree crowns, and their beauty is less overtly cadaverous. Their songs are sweeter, their dances more central. This suggests stronger retention of pre-Christian animism in sunnier, more open landscapes.
Western Slavic lands, Poland, Czech, Lusatia. Analogues include the Vodnica, Boginka, or Dziwożona.
These beings are often portrayed as older, misshapen, or childlike. Their connection to infant fate is stronger. They are notorious for stealing unbaptized babies or leaving changelings. Their role as punishers of moral transgressions, especially related to motherhood and childbirth, is pronounced.
These variations are a folklore geographer's map showing how a core archetype adapts to local environmental and social conditions. Part 6. Amulets, Charms, and Behavioral Codes. The Arsenal of Protection. Living in a world inhabited by Rusalki required a detailed knowledge of protective magic, creating a rich material and behavioral culture of defense. Personal amulets. Beyond the cross, apotropaic plants were paramount. Garlic, wormwood, and especially lovage, a love herb paradoxically used to repel the lovelorn dead. Iron, as a folklore universal against spirits, was used in pins or needles stuck into clothing. One never called her by her true name, using euphemisms like she, the wild one, or the green-haired one. Spatial protection. Before sleeping in the field during haymaking, a worker would draw a protective circle around themselves with a scythe or a stick. Crosses were erected near dangerous waters. Thresholds of homes were fortified with blessed herbs from Pentecost. The Code of Conduct. A comprehensive set of rules governed interaction with her domain. Do not swim alone, at noon, or at midnight. Do not wash clothes or pour out bath water where she might dwell. Do not answer calls from the water. If confronted, avoid eye contact, do not speak, and immediately draw a circle on the ground or make the sign of the cross. This code created a psychological map of safety, delineating the boundaries between the secure human world and the perilous, spirit-ruled wilderness. Part 7. The Rusalka as social metaphor, gender, class, and collective trauma. The Rusalka is a potent lens for social analysis, embodying deep-seated cultural anxieties. 1. Gender and sexuality. She represents the ultimate patriarchal nightmare, female sexuality utterly liberated from social control, marriage, and its biological consequence, legitimate childbirth. She is desirable but infertile, beautiful but deadly, a walking contradiction used to police the behavior of both young women, warning against premarital sex, and young men, warning against straying. 2. Class and power dynamics. In many ballads, the Rusalka is not a peasant girl, but a lord's or merchant's daughter. This allows the subaltern voice to symbolically critique the upper classes, portraying their women as morally compromised and their households as generators of unclean spirits, while also expressing a twisted form of empathy for a fellow victim of male privilege. 3. Embodiment of historical trauma. Periods of mass suffering, famine, epidemic, war, produced countless bad deaths. The myth provided a framework to comprehend this. A river where many suicides or plague victims were buried could become seen as a realm teeming with Rusalki, giving form to collective grief and horror. Part 8. Global Echoes. The Rusalka's kindred spirits. The Slavic Rusalka is part of a vast family of aquatic spirits worldwide, highlighting universal human concerns. Greek mythology. The sirens, luring sailors to death with song, are her direct maritime counterpart. The Nereids mirror the benevolent aspects of water nymphs. Germanic lore. The Nixe/Nyx is an almost identical freshwater shapeshifter, often malicious, emphasizing the peril of inland waters. Japanese folklore. The Kappa, though grotesque, shares functional similarities. A water spirit that drowns people, obsessed with ritual propriety, the bow. Celtic traditions. The banshee, a female death omen tied to a family, shares the Rusalka's connection to specific loci and her role as a mournful, fatal, feminine spirit. These parallels confirm the Rusalka as a specific cultural expression of the global archetype of the ambivalent nature spirit, a being that encapsulates our awe and terror of the wild, untamed world beyond the hearth. Part 9. From Ritual to Canon. The Rusalka in High Art. The myth proved endlessly fertile for artists who adapted its core tragedy. Literature. Pushkin's unfinished drama Rusalka paints her as a miller's daughter seeking vengeance. Gogol, in May Night, presents a more pitiful victim needing human help. Later, symbolist and modernist writers used her as a figure of irrational desire and existential alienation. Music and opera. Antonin Dvorak's opera Rusalka, 1901, is the pinnacle. It masterfully blends Slavic lore, the water spirit, the witch's bargain, with Andersen's framework, creating a profound tragedy of otherness and sacrificial love. Her Song to the Moon is a heart-rending expression of impossible longing. Visual arts. Painters from the Romantic and Symbolist eras were captivated. Ilya Repin's Sadko and the works of Mikhail Vrubel capture her eerie, melancholic beauty. Viktor Vasnetsov's sketches bring a more folkloric, eerie sensibility. Cinema. Adaptations range from Alexander Rue's poetic Soviet film May Night, 1952, to modern horror interpretations that frame her as a primal monster, and art house films that explore her mythopoetic dimensions. Part 10. The Undying Stream. The Rusalka in the Modern Psyche. Why does this ancient spirit remain relevant? 1. Ecological allegory. In an age of environmental crisis, the Rusalka resonates as the vengeful voice of polluted waters and despoiled ecosystems. Her vengeance can be read as nature's retribution for human exploitation. 2. Psychology of trauma. She is a powerful symbol for unprocessed trauma, frozen grief, and the unlived life. Therapeutic frameworks find her a useful metaphor for the haunting legacy of personal and historical suffering. 3. Feminist reclamation. Modern reinterpretations often cast her not as a demon, but as an avatar of justified feminine rage, autonomy, and resistance against patriarchal oppression. She's being reclaimed as a symbol of powerful, albeit tragic, female agency. 4. Cultural identity. In post-Soviet and Eastern European states, she serves as a potent marker of distinct cultural heritage, a pre-Christian symbol reclaimed in the search for national and regional identity. Conclusion. The eternal liminal. The journey of the Rusalka is the journey of the Slavic soul itself, from pagan animism through Christian dualism to modern reinterpretation. She began as a nymph, was demonized by doctrine, and humanized by folk empathy. She is both monster and mourner, a destroyer and a symbol of destroyed potential. She embodies the primal fear of dark water and the specific historical anxieties surrounding women's fates, social shame, and improper death. Her enduring presence in culture, from village rituals to opera houses to ecological discourse, proves her archetypal power. She is more than a ghost story. She is a complex cultural code, born from the confluence of nature worship, religious upheaval, social injustice, and profound human compassion for the restless dead. So the next time you stand by a quiet, deep stretch of river, or hear the wind rustle the leaves of a willow, remember, you are not in the realm of the Little Mermaid. You are at the border of the Rusalka's world, a world of haunting beauty, profound sorrow, and the untamed, enduring echo of a myth that continues to flow, deep and strong, through the channels of our collective imagination. Thank you.